Older woman is humiliated on a luxury cruise ship, unaware she is the undercover owner. The afternoon sun cast golden ribbons across the pristine deck of the Aurora Majesty, as Beatrice Langley stood at the ship's entrance, her heart quietly fluttering with anticipation. At 65, she carried herself with the kind of grace that came from decades of refinement, not the flashy demonstration of wealth that surrounded her on the gangway. Fellow passengers rushed past, their designer luggage clattering against the polished floor, their conversations a symphony of name-dropping and price tags. Beatrice smoothed down her vintage Chanel dress, a masterpiece from 1957 that had once belonged to her mother. The intricate beadwork caught the light, telling stories of Parisian ateliers and handcrafted excellence that these young fashion enthusiasts would probably never understand. The dress wasn't just fabric and thread, it was a piece of fashion history, worth more than most of the replicas and recent collections that paraded around her. As she made her way through the ship's grand atrium, Beatrice observed everything with keen eyes that missed nothing. The marble floors gleamed perfectly good. The staff's uniforms were immaculate, excellent. But there was something in their expressions when they greeted certain guests that troubled her. A subtle difference in their smiles depending on what someone wore or how they carried themselves. This was exactly why she had chosen to travel incognito. After 30 years of building her cruise empire from the ground up, Beatrice knew that true luxury wasn't about gold-plated everything, it was about how you made people feel. And tonight, she would see exactly how her staff treated guests when they thought the owner wasn't watching. The VIP lounge on Deck 12 was exactly as the reports had described, a masterpiece of modern luxury with floor-to-ceiling windows that wrapped around the ship's bow. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbow prisms across white leather sofas, and the bar's marble top gleamed like black ice. The room hummed with the particular energy of the ultra-wealthy, that casual confidence that came with never having to check a price tag. Beatrice approached the bar, noting how the bartender's eyes flicked over her dress, making assumptions with every glance. He was young, probably in his late 20s, with carefully styled hair and that practiced smile that hadn't quite reached his eyes. "Excuse me," Beatrice said softly, placing her hand on the bar's polished surface. "I'd love a glass of the Chateau Margaux, please." The bartender's smile froze, then twisted into something ugly. He leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "Ma'am, this is the VIP lounge. The main dining room is on Deck 5. He emphasized main dining room as if speaking to a child. "This area is for our premium guests only." A ripple of snickers spread through the nearby seats. A group of young women with perfect makeup and designer clothes didn't even try to hide their amusement. One of them, her blonde hair styled in elegant waves, whispered something to her companion, and they both burst into poorly concealed laughter. "I'm quite aware of where I am," Beatrice replied calmly, her voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that came from years of commanding boardrooms. "And I'd still like that glass of wine." The bartender's face hardened. "Listen, lady, I don't want to have to call security. This isn't some regular cruise where you can just wander wherever you want. Our VIP guests pay extra for privacy and exclusivity." More laughter now, louder. Phones were coming out, capturing her humiliation with glee. Beatrice stood perfectly still, her spine straight as steel, even as her heart ached, not for herself, but for what her company had apparently become. In the corner of her eye, she caught movement. Jonathan Price, one of her senior executives, had just entered the lounge. She saw the moment he recognized her, his face drained of color so fast she thought he might faint. He took a step forward, then stopped, clearly torn between intervening and maintaining her cover. Beatrice gave him the slightest shake of her head. No, she needed to see this play out. Needed to understand exactly what happened on her ships when people thought no one important was watching. "Very well," she said quietly, gathering her vintage clutch. "Thank you for making your position so clear." She turned to leave, but not before catching the bartender's triumphant smirk as he turned to the blonde woman who had been whispering earlier. "Can I get you another champagne, Miss Kingsley?" "On the house, of course." "Of course." The woman, Vanessa Kingsley, Beatrice presumed, replied with a dazzling smile. Someone needs to keep the standards up around here, right? As Beatrice walked away, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor, she could hear phones buzzing with notifications as posts went live. Her humiliation was probably already spreading across social media, providing entertainment for thousands. Little did they know, they had just given her exactly what she came for, proof that somewhere along the way, her vision of true luxury had been corrupted by superficial glamour. As she stepped into the elevator, Beatrice pulled out her phone and sent a single text to Jonathan. Meeting. My sweet. 1 hour. The night was young, and Beatrice Langley had seen enough. It was time to remind everyone aboard the Aurora Majesty what real class looked like, and it had nothing to do with designer labels or social media followers. Vanessa Kingsley was having the time of her life. With 2.5 million followers hanging on her every post, she knew an opportunity for viral content when she saw one. The older woman's retreat from the VIP lounge had been amusing, but Vanessa sensed there was more entertainment to be mined from this situation. Girls, follow me, she commanded her entourage, rising gracefully from her plush velvet seat. Her Valentino heels clicked against the marble as she pursued her unsuspecting target, iPhone 15 Pro Max already in hand. Behind her trailed Madison, Sophia, and Blake, her loyal squad of fellow influencers, each with their own substantial following. They found Beatrice sitting quietly in the ship's grand atrium, looking through what appeared to be an antique leather-bound book. The evening light streaming through the massive windows caught the intricate beadwork of her vintage dress, but Vanessa saw only outdated fashion. Going live, dolls, Vanessa announced, her perfectly manicured finger hovering over the button. Time to show our followers what not to wear on a luxury cruise. With a practiced flick, she activated her live stream, instantly connecting with hundreds of thousands of viewers. Oh my God. You guys won't believe what I just found on the Aurora Majesty. Vanessa's voice dripped with manufactured excitement. It's like someone's grandmother raided a thrift store and crashed our VIP section. She turned the camera toward Beatrice, making sure to capture every angle of her target. The comments started flooding in immediately. LOL, who let her on board? Face with tears of joy. That dress belongs in a museum. Someone call the fashion police. Police car like old woman. Madison, ever the opportunist, pulled out her own phone and started snapping pictures. This is totally going in my fashion disasters highlight reel. She giggled, her voice carrying deliberately across the atrium. The bartender from earlier, sensing another chance to impress the influential group, appeared with a tray of champagne. Ladies, I thought you might enjoy these while you document the evening's entertainment. He smirked, distributing the flutes with flourish. Sophia, the group's self-proclaimed fashion expert with her own styling blog, stepped forward for a closer analysis. Oh darling, she called out to Beatrice, loud enough for the live stream to pick up. Did you know we're well past the 1950s? I simply must know, was this dress actually purchased during the Great Depression? Blake chimed in, her voice sweet but venomous. Maybe she won it in a raffle at the senior center? The atrium, now filling with evening crowds heading to dinner, had become an impromptu arena for public humiliation. Other passengers, drawn to the commotion and recognizing the famous influencers, started gathering around. Some pulled out their own phones, eager to capture content for their social media accounts. #cruise ship crashers, Vanessa declared to her live audience, which had now swelled to over 100,000 viewers. Watch this, everyone, I'm about to do this poor woman a favor. She sashayed toward Beatrice, camera still rolling. Excuse me. Vanessa's voice carried the false concern of a practiced performer. I simply must intervene. As someone with extensive experience in luxury travel and fashion, I feel obligated to inform you that this ship has certain standards. That dress, while I'm sure it holds sentimental value, really belongs in a different venue. Perhaps one of those charming river cruises that cater to a more mature audience. Beatrice slowly closed her book, her movements deliberate and graceful. She looked directly into Vanessa's camera, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp as cut diamonds. The silence that followed made Vanessa shift uncomfortably, though she quickly masked it with a practiced laugh. "Oh my God, you guys!" Vanessa turned back to her phone. "I don't think she understands. Maybe we should speak louder?" This earned another round of laughter from her followers, both online and in person. The bartender, now fully committed to the spectacle, raised his voice theatrically. "Ma'am," he practically shouted, "perhaps you'd be more comfortable in the main dining room, where the dress code is more flexible?" Jonathan Price, who had been watching the scene unfold from the mezzanine level, gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. He knew he should intervene, knew that this public humiliation of the company's owner would have severe consequences, but Beatrice's earlier silent command kept him rooted in place. Beatrice rose from her seat with the kind of poise that couldn't be bought or faked. Without a word, she gathered her belongings and walked toward the grand staircase. Each step was measured, elegant, and somehow made Vanessa's designer heels look clumsy in comparison. "Wait! The tea isn't finished spilling!" Vanessa called out to her retreating figure. "Don't you want to know how many people are watching your fashion faux pas right now? We could make you famous!" But Beatrice had already disappeared up the stairs, leaving behind a wake of cruel laughter and buzzing phones. Vanessa turned back to her live stream with a triumphant smile. "Well, dolls, I think we just saved the entire cruise from a serious fashion emergency. Don't forget to like and share." What none of them noticed was the slight smile playing at the corners of Beatrice's lips as she ascended the stairs, or the way she paused briefly to whisper something to a senior staff member who passed her on the landing. They were too busy celebrating their perceived victory, competing to post the most cleverly cruel captions and racing to see whose story would get the most engagement. The hashtag cruise ship crashers was trending within the hour, accompanied by poorly angled photos of Beatrice's dress and endlessly recycled jokes about fashion crimes and age-appropriate cruising. Vanessa's livestream had racked up over 500,000 views, and her follower count was climbing by the minute. As the influencers celebrated their viral moment in the VIP lounge, none of them noticed the subtle shift in the staff's behavior. The slightly strained smiles, the nervous glances, the whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when they approached. They were too caught up in their own importance to see the storm clouds gathering on their horizon. The night was still young aboard the Aurora Majesty, and Karma was about to book a first-class ticket. Jonathan Price stood in his office on Deck 15, loosening his tie as he stared at the social media storm unfolding on his tablet. The hashtag cruise ship crashers had exploded, with Vanessa Kingsley's video reaching millions of views. Under normal circumstances, this kind of viral attention would have been marketing gold for the Aurora Majesty. But these were not normal circumstances, and Jonathan could already feel his career crumbling around him. His phone buzzed, another message from the ship's head of security. "Sir, Mrs. Langley has requested all security footage from the VIP lounge and atrium be preserved. Should we be concerned?" Jonathan didn't bother responding. Of course they should be concerned. He'd spent 15 years working his way up through the company, and in all that time, he'd only met Beatrice Langley twice. Both encounters had left him with the same impression: she was not someone who forgave easily, especially when it came to matters of dignity and respect. Running his hands through his graying hair, he made his way down to the VIP lounge. The same bartender, Mark Stevens, according to his nameplate, was still holding court, now regaling a fresh crowd with his dramatized version of earlier events. "Excuse me," Jonathan interrupted, his voice tight with tension. "Mr. Stevens, might I have a word?" The bartender's smile faltered slightly before recovering. "Of course, sir, but I'm quite busy with our VIP guests at the moment. Perhaps later?" "Now." The word carried the weight of 15 years of executive authority. In a quiet corner of the lounge, Jonathan kept his voice low but urgent. "Do you have any idea what you've done? That woman you humiliated, she owns this entire cruise line." Mark's carefully maintained confidence wavered for a moment before he laughed it off. "Good one, sir. But I've seen photos of Beatrice Langley in the company newsletters. She's always in designer suits, attending charity galas. That old lady in the vintage dress? Please." She was clearly just some confused passenger who wandered into the wrong section. That old lady built this company from nothing. She's worth billions, and she chooses to travel incognito to observe how we truly treat our guests. Jonathan pulled out his phone, showing Mark a news article from 5 years ago. Beatrice Langley at a maritime industry gala, wearing the exact same vintage Chanel dress. The color drained from Mark's face as reality finally began to sink in. But the influencers, they started it. Ms. Kingsley and her friends, they were the ones who… And you played right into it, didn't you? Jonathan cut him off. Too busy trying to impress some social media celebrities to remember the first rule of luxury service. Treat every guest like they own the place, because one day, you might find out they actually do. Across the lounge, the ship's staff had begun to notice the change in atmosphere. Word spread quickly through subtle whispers and meaningful glances. A senior steward who had worked for the company for 20 years took one look at Jonathan's face and immediately began adjusting the VIP service protocols for the evening. But Vanessa and her entourage remained blissfully oblivious to the shifting tides around them. They were too busy planning their outfits for tomorrow, their phones still buzzing with notifications from their viral moment. I'm telling you. Jonathan tried one last time. You need to fix this. Apologize to her. Do something before. Before what? Mark scoffed, his pride overriding his brief moment of concern. Look, with all due respect, sir, I think you're overreacting. Even if that was Beatrice Langley, which I doubt, the video's already gone viral. It's good publicity. Everyone's talking about how exclusive our VIP lounge is. Ms. Kingsley has even promised to feature us in her upcoming luxury travel series. Jonathan watched in dismay as Mark returned to the bar, already slipping back into his role as the VIP bartender catering to the influential elite. The warning signs were all there: the nervous staff, the preserved security footage, the subtle changes in service protocols. But those who needed to see them most remained willfully blind. A gentle chime from his phone drew his attention. A new calendar invite had just appeared. Emergency board meeting tomorrow morning or Our Majesty incident. The recipient list included every major executive in the company. As Jonathan stared at the invitation, another notification appeared, a company-wide memo regarding an exclusive gala event scheduled for tomorrow evening. The guest list was surprisingly short, focusing primarily on the VIP lounge regulars and, specifically, those who have made their presence most notably felt on social media today. He recognized Beatrice's subtle hand in this. She wasn't just planning to address this situation, she was orchestrating an elaborate lesson in humility. Jonathan had seen it once before, early in his career, when a rival cruise line had publicly mocked Beatrice's commitment to old-fashioned luxury. That company had been acquired by Langley Cruise Lines within 6 months, its entire executive board replaced. Looking around the VIP lounge now, Jonathan could almost feel sorry for them, the preening influencers, the smug bartender, the guests who had so eagerly participated in the public mockery. They had no idea they were performing for an audience of one, and that their performance had been found wanting. The ship's engines hummed softly beneath his feet as the Aurora Majesty continued its journey through the darkening evening. Somewhere above them, in her private suite, Beatrice Langley was undoubtedly preparing for tomorrow. Jonathan had a feeling it would be a day that everyone aboard would remember for a very long time. As he left the lounge, he heard Vanessa Kingsley's voice ring out. "Oh my God, you guys, we simply have to do a group shot for our Rich Girls at Sea series. Mark, darling, more champagne." Jonathan shook his head. The warning signs were everywhere, clear as day to anyone willing to see them. But sometimes, he reflected, people remain blind to the approaching storm until it's already upon them. The next morning, as sunlight danced across the ocean waves, a series of precise knocks echoed through the ship's premium suites. Uniformed staff members, their posture impeccable and expressions professionally neutral, delivered elegant black envelopes sealed with gold wax. Inside each envelope lay a hand-calligraphed invitation on cream-colored cardstock that seemed to whisper of old money and refined taste. Vanessa Kingsley was the first to share her invitation on Instagram. "OMG, my loves! You won't believe what just arrived! Hashtag VIP Life, hashtag Ultra Exclusive. Her caption read, accompanied by a perfectly staged photo of the invitation resting on her silk sheets. The invitation read, You are cordially invited to the Aurora Majesty's Legacy Gala, an ultra-exclusive evening of true luxury tonight at 8 o'clock, the Grand Ballroom. Dress code, attire worthy of true wealth and elegance. This exclusive event is by personal invitation only. Within minutes, Vanessa's phone erupted with messages from her entourage. Madison, Sophia, and Blake had all received identical invitations, leading to a frenzied group video call. This has to be because of our influence, Madison squealed, already rifling through her extensive vacation wardrobe. They obviously saw how many views our posts got yesterday. Ladies, we need to coordinate, Sophia declared, her styling expertise kicking in. This is bigger than our usual content. The invitation specifically mentions true wealth and elegance. We need to absolutely slay this. Blake, who had been scrolling through her phone, chimed in with excitement. You won't believe this. I just checked with other passengers. Only about 30 people on the entire ship got invited. We're talking seriously exclusive. Vanessa smiled at her reflection as she held up various designer pieces. Obviously, they recognized real luxury when they saw it. I mean, after yesterday's little incident with that poor old woman, they probably want to make sure everyone knows what real VIPs look like. In his cabin, Mark the bartender stared at his own invitation with a mixture of relief and pride. Clearly, his handling of yesterday's situation had impressed someone important. Maybe Jonathan Price had been wrong about everything. After all, if he was in trouble, why would he be invited to such an exclusive event? Throughout the day, the invited guests paraded through the ship's luxury boutiques, purchasing last-minute additions to their wardrobes. The ship's personal shoppers were kept busy running between cabins with armfuls of designer clothes and accessories. Vanessa spent 3 hours in the ship's premium spa, ensuring her skin had the perfect glow. Tonight has to be epic, she instructed her makeup artist. We're talking Met Gala level glamour. I want everyone to know exactly why I was chosen for this event. As evening approached, the anticipation among the invited guests reached a fever pitch. Rumors circulated about who might be attending: celebrities, business moguls, royalty? The speculation only added to the excitement. In her suite, Vanessa made final adjustments to her outfit, a custom-made balmain gown that cost more than most people's cars. Her makeup was flawless, her jewelry dripped with diamonds, and her hair was styled in elaborate waves that had taken 2 hours to perfect. Final check, girls, she commanded through a group chat. We need to arrive together for maximum impact. The photographers will eat it up. At 7:45 p.m., the invited guests began making their way to the Grand Ballroom. The ship's corridors had been transformed with elegant floral arrangements and softly glowing crystal chandeliers. Staff members stood at attention, directing guests with white-gloved hands. The entrance to the ballroom was a masterpiece of understated luxury. 2 massive doors of dark wood stood closed, with golden lights spilling out from beneath them. A small queue formed as security checked invitations against the list. Vanessa and her group deliberately arrived at 7:55 p.m., timing their entrance for maximum effect. They posed at the top of the grand staircase, allowing other guests to photograph them. Their combined outfits probably cost enough to buy a small island. I can't wait to see who's hosting this, Blake whispered excitedly. Maybe it's that Saudi prince people spotted on board yesterday? The doors to the ballroom remained firmly closed until exactly 8 p.m. As the ship's bells chimed the hour, they slowly began to open. The assembled guests straightened their postures and checked their reflections one final time. A distinguished-looking butler appeared in the doorway. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced in a crisp British accent, welcome to the Aurora Majesty's Legacy Gala. Please proceed inside and take your assigned seats. The evening's host will join us momentarily. As they entered, each guest was handed a champagne flute filled with what appeared to be vintage Dom Perignon. The ballroom itself was a vision of classical luxury, nothing flashy or ostentatious, just pure, refined elegance that made even Vanessa's expensive gown feel somehow inadequate. At each place setting, a small card bore the guest's name in the same calligraphy as the invitation. Vanessa found herself seated prominently near the front, which only reinforced her conviction that she was being honored for her influence. "Get ready to go live as soon as the host arrives," she whispered to her friends. "This is going to be epic content." The lights dimmed slightly, and a hush fell over the room. The butler reappeared at the entrance, clearing his throat for an announcement. None of the guests noticed the knowing smiles that had begun to appear on the faces of the staff members positioned around the room. The stage was set, the players were in position, and in just a few moments, they would all learn exactly why they had been chosen for this very special evening. A spotlight illuminated the grand staircase at the far end of the ballroom, and there she stood, Beatrice Langley, wearing the same vintage Chanel dress from yesterday, but now paired with a stunning Art Deco diamond necklace that caught the light like captured stars. The room fell into a shocked silence so complete you could hear the distant hum of the ship's engines. "Good evening, everyone," Beatrice's voice carried effortlessly across the ballroom. "I'm Beatrice Langley, owner and CEO of Langley Cruise Lines, and more specifically, the owner of this ship you're currently enjoying, or should I say, documenting?" The sound of several champagne glasses hitting the floor echoed through the room. Vanessa Kingsley's phone slipped from her perfectly manicured fingers, clattering onto the marble floor. Mark the bartender, stationed behind the ballroom's bar, looked as though he might faint. "Before we begin this evening's entertainment," Beatrice continued, descending the stairs with measured grace, "I'd like to draw your attention to the displays being unveiled around the room." On cue, staff members removed velvet drapes from several museum-style glass cases positioned throughout the ballroom. Inside the first case, illuminated by subtle lighting, was a collection of photographs and documents, the original sketches of the Chanel dress she wore, signed by Coco Chanel herself, along with photographs of the dress being worn at historic events throughout the decades. "This dress," Beatrice gestured to her outfit, "was created in 1957 as part of Chanel's private collection. It was purchased by my mother at a time when our family had very little, sacrificing everything because she believed in investing in quality over quantity." She paused, her eyes finding Vanessa's. "It's currently valued at approximately $1.2 million, Ms. Kingsley. More than all the fast fashion designer pieces in this room combined." Another display case revealed the dress's intricate beadwork under magnification, alongside documentation from fashion historians and luxury authentication experts. A third case showed magazines and photographs from various decades, documenting the dress's appearances at significant historical events. But perhaps the most interesting display, Beatrice continued, walking toward a large screen that had descended from the ceiling, "is this one?" The screen flickered to life, showing Vanessa's live stream from the previous day. But this wasn't the edited, filter-heavy version that had gone viral. This was raw footage from the ship's security cameras, showing multiple angles of the mockery and cruelty in stark, unforgiving detail. "Fascinating, isn't it?" Beatrice's voice took on an edge of steel. "How quickly people reveal their true character when they think they're in a position of power." She gestured to someone in the corner, and suddenly, Antoine Dubois, one of the world's most renowned fashion historians, stepped forward. "Mrs. Langley," he began, his French accent thick with respect, "your preservation of this piece is remarkable. The craftsmanship, the history, this is what true luxury looks like. Not the disposable fashion we see today." Vanessa and her friends shrunk in their seats as Dubois's critical eye swept over their expensive but ultimately unremarkable outfits. "What we see here," he continued, "is the difference between wealth and worth. Between price and value." Beatrice nodded graciously to Dubois before turning her attention to Mark, who was trying to make himself invisible behind the bar. "Mr. Stevens," her voice carried across the room like a whip crack, "please step forward." Mark emerged from behind the bar, his legs visibly shaking. The confidence from yesterday had evaporated completely. "Your employment with Langley Cruise Lines is terminated, effective immediately," Beatrice announced. "Not because you refused to serve me, that was your job, To maintain the exclusivity of the VIP spaces. No, you're terminated because when you thought I was just another guest, you chose cruelty over kindness. That is unforgivable in any service industry, but especially in one built on luxury and dignity. The room watched in stunned silence as security quietly escorted Mark out. Beatrice turned back to her audience, her expression serene but her eyes sharp as razors. Now, to our social media influencers. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You've built your brands on showcasing luxury, yet you don't recognize it when it's standing right in front of you. Your followers believe you're experts in high fashion, yet you couldn't identify a piece of fashion history if it wore a name tag. The screen behind her switched to displaying the real-time follower counts of Vanessa and her friends, all of which were dropping precipitously as the true story of their behavior began spreading across social media. True luxury, Beatrice continued, isn't about hashtags or follower counts. It's not about how much you spend or what labels you wear. It's about how you treat people, all people, with dignity and respect. She raised her champagne glass, and the room automatically followed suit, hands shaking slightly as they lifted their glasses. To education, Beatrice toasted. May we all learn something valuable from this evening. The lights came up fully, revealing that the entire event had been photographed and filmed by a professional crew. Vanessa's horror-struck face was perfectly captured as she realized that tomorrow, she would be trending for all the wrong reasons. As the reality of their situation sank in, the guests watched Beatrice glide through the room, stopping to chat with the genuine VIPs who had been quietly invited, fashion historians, luxury brand executives, and old money families who understood that true class never needed to announce itself. The night's carefully orchestrated revelation had achieved exactly what Beatrice intended, a masterclass in humility, delivered with the same quiet elegance that had made her cruise line the standard-bearer for luxury travel. The morning after the gala, the Aurora Majesty buzzed with a different kind of energy. Gone were the flashy social media posts and loud declarations of status. Instead, whispered conversations and furtive glances followed Beatrice as she took her morning walk around the deck, now dressed in a casual but elegant Hermes ensemble that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. Vanessa Kingsley and her entourage attempted damage control from their suites, but the internet had already turned against them. Their previous viral moment had been completely overshadowed by what social media was now calling the Queen of Cruise Line's masterclass in class. Videos of Beatrice's revelation and subsequent speech had spread like wildfire, garnering millions of views and spawning countless think pieces about authentic luxury versus social media pretense. As Beatrice sat in the same VIP lounge that had rejected her just 2 days ago, Vanessa approached nervously, her designer heels clicking tentatively on the marble floor. Her usually perfect makeup couldn't quite hide her sleepless night, and her confident posture had been replaced by something far more uncertain. Mrs. Langley, Vanessa began, her voice lacking its usual polish. I wanted to apologize for my behavior. What I did was completely unacceptable, and Beatrice raised her hand gently, stopping Vanessa mid-sentence. With deliberate grace, she lifted her glass of Chateau Margaux, the same wine she'd been denied earlier, and took a thoughtful sip before responding. Ms. Kingsley, she said, her voice carrying that same quiet authority that had commanded the ballroom the night before. Apologies are like designer labels, meaningless unless backed by substance. She gestured to the seat across from her, not as an invitation, but as a command. Vanessa sank into the chair, looking very much like a student called to the principal's office. Behind her, her friends hovered uncertainly near the bar, where a new bartender served drinks with impeccable professionalism. Tell me, Beatrice continued, what have you learned from this experience? Vanessa faltered, then squared her shoulders. I learned that I've been promoting a completely hollow version of luxury. That I've been teaching millions of followers to value the wrong things. Go on, Beatrice encouraged, her expression neutral but attentive. Your dress, the history behind it, the craftsmanship, the stories it could tell, that's real luxury. Not the constant chase for the newest, most expensive things. Vanessa's voice grew stronger as understanding dawned. I've been so focused on appearing wealthy that I forgot about having actual worth. A slight smile tugged at the corner of Beatrice's mouth. She reached for her phone, pulled up Vanessa's latest social media post, a lengthy, heartfelt apology that had already garnered significant attention, and nodded approvingly. Perhaps, Beatrice suggested, your platform could use its influence for something more meaningful than mockery? True luxury has always been about education, appreciation, and respect, values that never go out of style. The tension in the room dissolved as Beatrice raised her glass in a final toast. The message was clear: lesson taught, lesson learned, time to move forward. As news of the incident spread throughout the luxury travel industry, Beatrice's reputation only grew stronger. The Aurora Majesty became known not just as a luxury cruise ship, but as the vessel where one of the most powerful women in the industry had taught an unforgettable lesson about the true meaning of class. In the days that followed, Beatrice enjoyed the remainder of her cruise in peace, observing with satisfaction as her staff demonstrated the highest standards of service to every guest, regardless of their appearance or social media following. The VIP lounge maintained its exclusivity but did so with dignity and respect, just as she had originally envisioned. Vanessa Kingsley's social media presence underwent a dramatic transformation. Her formerly superficial content was replaced by thoughtful explorations of fashion history, craftsmanship, and authentic luxury. Her first post about the historical significance of vintage couture, featuring an interview with Beatrice herself, became her most engaged content ever, not for its drama, but for its substance. On the final night of the cruise, as the Aurora Majesty cut through the moonlit waters, Beatrice stood at the bow of the ship. She wore her vintage Chanel dress one last time, not as a test or a statement, but simply because she loved it. Around her neck, the Art Deco diamonds sparkled like stars brought down to earth, and in her hand she held a glass of the Chateau Margaux that had started it all. The ship's lights cast a warm glow across the deck, and in the distance, the horizon promised new adventures. Beatrice smiled, knowing that her impromptu lesson in humility had rippled far beyond the confines of the ship. Sometimes, she reflected, the most powerful statements are made not through loud declarations or viral moments, but through quiet dignity and unwavering grace. As the Aurora Majesty sailed on into the night, it carried with it a story that would be told and retold in luxury circles for years to come, the tale of an undercover owner who had turned humiliation into triumph, and in doing so, had reminded the world that true class isn't about who you appear to be, but who you are when you think no one important is watching.